Good evening. I'll now call the City of Cannon Falls City Council meeting for Tuesday, February 17th to order. Roll call.
Councilmember Duncan,
Here.
Gallops,
Here.
Holst,
Here.
Johnson,
Here.
Madsen,
Here.
Schoblum,
Here.
and Mayor Robinson.
Here. All please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the last meeting for February. At this time, the chair will take a motion to approve the amended agenda as submitted.
So moved.
I will second.
Have a motion by Merle, a second by Bill. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Moving on to item 5 this evening, public input. Citizens may speak to issues not on the agenda. Before speaking, please give your name and address for the minutes, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Is there anyone wishing to speak on anything that's not on the agenda this evening? If not, we will move on to item 6 this evening, which is introduction and update of we're lucky enough tonight to have our new county commissioner, Brad Anderson, in the house, and I'm going to ask Brad to come forward to the mic and introduce Brad. Brad has hit the ground running over at the county, and welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here this evening and meet with you. Greetings from Goodhue County. We spent all day, Robbie and I, at meetings all day today in Red Wing. And it has been a fun 2 months so far. But it might get tougher. But I thoroughly enjoy this. It's kind of ironic that I'm here on an evening when you're going to honor your school board members, because that's kind of where I started with public service on Cannon Falls School Board for 6 years, and you learn a lot. And in this position, I'm learning a lot, and I like being in the forefront of what's going on in the county and what's going on in your community and our community and in the townships that I serve. I really have a good feeling for Goodhue County as we move forward. We got a lot of good things going on in the county. We got a lot of good things that our citizens bring to the county, and especially here in Cannon Falls, you got a good support group of businessmen and a good support group from the council to move this town forward and move this area forward. I really am here to serve you. I want to hear your concerns. I want to hear what you want to talk about, because I could talk about a lot of different things, but I want to hear what you want to talk about. So if anybody has any questions, anybody has any input, I would love to hear it. That's what happens at the township meetings. What's the deal? We all know we have problems. We all know we have issues to solve. In Cannon Falls, there are some at the county level. Collectively, as we put our heads together, and the answer is always in the room. It's just to ask enough questions to get to the bottom of it, and we will find the answer. And that's the approach I take. I also take the approach in today's meetings. We were talking about goals, and when I ran for this office, I had no agenda. I had no one issue that I wanted to deal with other than planning. We need to plan, we need to look forward, we need to think where we want to be as a county, as a town, as a township, as a school, and we need to look 5 years out, and we need to really focus on what it is that we need to do to get where we want to get to in 5 years. And then we can make the decisions, do we do this, do we do that, do we do this? And it will lead us to that goal. But we're going to make those decisions knowing what the ramifications of a yes or a no are. And that's really where I'm at to really define 5 years. Look out 10 years, it's a little fuzzier. Look out 20 years, it's a little fuzzier than that. But we have issues in the next 5 years that we need to deal with on the county level. I know you do at the city level. I know townships do at their level. And we need to focus on those so we can make the right decisions to move ourselves forward. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. You probably want me to talk about specific issues, and if you do, I want you to bring them up, but I just want you to know I'm available. Contact me anytime. My phone number's on the website. My email's on the website. I want to be here to listen to your concerns and work for you. Thank you.
Thanks, Brad. We look forward to working with you during your term in office and for many years to come.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brad. At this time, we'll move on to item 7, which is a proclamation number 2119, recognizing the Cannon Falls School Board and Superintendent Geese. And at this time, I will read a resolution. It's City of Cannon Falls, Goodhue County, Minnesota, resolution number 2119. Resolution recognizing the Cannon Falls School Board and Superintendent Geese. Whereas the City of Cannon Falls recognizes the importance of public education in our community, and whereas the City of Cannon Falls appreciates the vital role played by those individuals who are local school board members, establish policies to ensure an efficient, effective school system, and whereas school board members serve as a voice that enables our community to preserve local management and control of our public schools. And whereas school board members are charged with representing our local education interests to state and federal government and ensuring compliance with state and federal law. And whereas school board members selflessly devote their knowledge, time, and talents as advocates for our children. Whereas school board members are strong advocates for public education and responsible for communicating the needs of the school district to the public and the public's expectation of the district. Whereas Cannon Falls Schools Superintendent Beth Geese was named the recipient of the K.E. Jacobs Memorial Award for her leadership, concern for students, and involvement in both professional and community activities. Now therefore, it be resolved that the City of Cannon Falls recognizes and salutes the members of the Cannon Falls School Board by proclaiming February the 16th through the 20th, 2015 as School Board Recognition Week, and congratulates Superintendent Geese for accomplishments and receiving the K.E. Jacobs Memorial Award. Adopted by the City Council of Cannon Falls the 17th day of February 2015, signed by myself, Lyman Robinson, Mayor, and Ron Johnson, City Administrator. I'd like to present this to Beth.
Make a motion to approve.
One of the main reasons why we want to pass this resolution tonight is this isn't just me working on these grants and these things for a school. You really have to be able to have resolutions like this in place to be able to show the cooperation between the schools. Within a week of, Ron taking his new job, we were meeting. This morning I was with Jeff at 7 a.m. We're going to be together at 7 p.m. I've been emailing Tom all week on a multitude of things. We had a meeting, Dave and I, just on Monday morning at 7 a.m. This is about us working together. And I think if I look at all the people in this room, the mayor and I have constant communication. I think it shows something unique and different about our town. We work together to make great things happen. And so I know you had to pass this resolution for me to do a lot of things, but it really is about us working together and what we can do. So I want to say thank you to all of you. This can't happen without you guys. So thank you very much.
Do we need to vote on that? Need a motion to approve that resolution.
So moved.
And I will second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to say thanks to Beth and the job the school does, educating the kids, making sure they get transported back and forth to school safely, and the job they do working with the city. We look to work with everybody more and more in the future and find better ways to serve everybody in the community. And at this time, that moves us on to item 8, the consent agenda. Items on this area of the agenda may be adopted, or they may be removed and placed on the business area of the agenda before discussion purposes before approving. Item A is the just and correct claims for the accounting period ending February the 13th, 2015. Item B are the meeting minutes for the February 3rd, 2015 City Council meeting. Item C is the relamping of John Birch Field. And item D is the purchase of the EMS cardiac monitor defibrillators. Are there any items anybody wishes to bring down? If not, Chair, I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion by Merle, second by Bill. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? This time, before we move on to council business, I'd like to introduce to you our new ambulance director. He's been on board for about a month and a half now, and it's the first chance we've had to get him up here to really introduce him to everybody. Tim Malchow. I say that right?
Malchow.
Malchow. The only reason I didn't introduce you earlier, in case they had any questions about the EMS cardiac, because I was going to make you answer them. Get introduced that way. But anyway, welcome, Tim. I know you've hit the ground running, and you've got to leave shortly because you're going to do some training with the fire department. So thanks for being here, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome.
Yes.
Okay, this moves us on to item 9, council business, and item A is utility rates. Mr. Johnson.
We have Todd here with Ehlers Associates. Linnell and I have been working with Ehlers staff for a couple months now, actually even before the first of the year, on utility rates. We've updated with them the anticipated CIPs. I've mentioned to you before that we did make some revisions to those CIPs, at least as far as Ehlers is concerned, and rate structures, because a lot of the projects that we had looked at were well, we had Greg Anderson update the 2016, potentially 2016-17 street improvement project. For one, some water tower improvements and so forth that got kicked out a little bit, and there's some other things. But so that's fairly updated, at least as far as their concern related to the water and sewer rates. So Todd will be here to kind of go through a summary of the report that they've presented to you. And there will be a rate increase proposed, as was stated even in last year's report, that there was an ongoing projected rate increase for both our water and sewer rates. But Todd, thank you for being here.
Yep, thanks, Ron. Council, thanks for having me, Mayor, staff. Todd Hagan from Ehlers & Associates. Rebecca and I do a lot of work for the city of Cannon Falls in this area. Gene Vogt from our office is our expert in the rate study arena. And it's my job tonight to go through the summary for you folks. I know you have a summary in your packets electronically. So hopefully you read through that. I won't go through all the any of the underlying numbers. There's many spreadsheets that we've built to get to this point, and I just kind of want to cut to the chase on the summary, and you can certainly ask me questions as we go along or at the end. I guess what we're trying to do here tonight is basically at the very end of that rate study, there's some recommendations for rate increases for the water, sanitary sewer, and stormwater, some of which are just kind of keeping up with inflation, and others need a little bit of extra increase to, again, account for, like Ron had said, some extra capital improvements. Rate increases, as we know, are necessary to provide revenues to operate, the utility make annual debt payments, and provide cash for capital projects. So our task is to update what most of you have seen before. These rate studies have been in front of the council in the past, so we're building what we've projected in the past and kind of what we know here in the present day and then for the future. So There are some variations to the prior year's reports that you've seen in the past. The water fund, we are recommending a 5% rate increase this year and beyond. This is up from 4% last year due to the reduction in residential water access charges. But it is still lower than the prior year's 10% that has been projected in the past, in previous reports. So that's the water fund. Pretty healthy, not a whole lot of extra increases there, just to again keep up with those future expenditures. The sanitary sewer fund, we're going to have you take a look at a couple different scenarios there. There's two different options, two rate increase options that we'd like the council to take a look at to consider. There's an option 1 in here, and we'll go through these page by page, but I just wanted to let you folks know what we're looking at because there's lots of words in here and graphs. Option 1 is a 10% increase for 2015 and 16, and 2% thereafter. It's a continuation of the prior year's recommendations, and you're still on track from last year to reach the targeted cash balance by 2022. And what we mean by targeted cash balance is 6 months of the current year's operations expenses plus 1 year of the next debt service payments. So that's what we'd like to see in a reserve. So it's not 50% of the prior year's expenditures, it's 50% of the operations and a whole year of debt payments. That's the targeted cash balance we're looking at achieving here. Option 2 in the sanitary sewer fund is 5% increase for 2015 and beyond. So instead of 10% for 15 and 16 and then 2%, which is basically sort of an inflation factor, this is less of an increase. It's 5% instead of 10 in 2015, but it stays that way till we get to our cash balance by at least 2022, the targeted cash balance. The balances are projected. This is actually what happens. We'll show you some graphs here, but what that looks like on the graph is that obviously we don't reach a higher plateau and exponentially kind of the component there of the compounding, I guess is the word. We don't have that higher compounding at 10% for the first couple years. It's 5%, but when we get to the 2022 year, that we're pretty much where we were and where we'll be in option 1. It's just that we get up a little bit sooner and we sort of plateau in option 1 and a little less that way in option 2. But the end result is, and I'll show you some graphs here, which is pretty much the same when we get to the same point by 2022 for the targeted cash balance. Stormwater is no change from the prior year, just still recommending a 2% annual inflationary increase, just to, again, keep up with inflation and not let those balances go down too far. So again, option 1, we get to that, tends to hover a little closer to the target than option 2, and it's a little similar to the water fund as far as kind of the gap between our cash balance and our targeted cash balance. We'll take a look at that. So that's where option 1 gets you there a little bit quicker. It looks a little bit more like the water fund. Option 2 on the sanitary sewer takes a little bit more time to have that graph look like that. So our assumptions, just on the first page, I like to look at these little boxes. We have assumed that there would also be 5 residential homes being built from 2015, again in this graph, to 2018, and about 3 per year of commercial. So by reducing that water access charge, has hurt that a little bit as far as that revenue coming from residential development. So we really need to make up for that in the water fund by, again, that extra 1% rate increase. So we're offsetting the loss in the WAC charge. So don't want to go through the words, but this is what the monthly water rates would look like, sort of broken down into just the base rate for all users and the residential users and the commercial users and irrigation amounts. So we can see where we're at in 2014, where we're projecting out. Again, this is the water fund at the 5% increase across the board. That's what that looks like. And the monthly sanitary sewer, here's where we get to the two options on this. I've got a little bit better table later on, but this one shows, again, the 10% jump in 2015 and 2016, then kind of plateauing off just to keep up with inflation from 2017 and thereafter at 2%. And the option 2 then is just your flat 5% increase from 2015 and thereon and thereafter. By putting both of those options on a graph up at the top, that line up at the very top is the targeted cash balance that we want to get to. And we will achieve that going with both options by 2022. But you can see the blue bars would be option 1, and that's at that higher level in the first 2 years, and then just drops off to 2% to keep up inflation. Again, we've got the compounding factor there that's in our favor that sort of keeps that higher, I guess, than option 2, which is just your 5% all the way across the board. Neither gets us to that targeted level until 2022. And then actually option 1 gets us there a little bit more than option 2 does, and it's something to think about. I circled it on my report. Something to think about. The stormwater utility at the bottom, that just stays keeping up with inflation at 2%. Don't need to talk about that too much. This one is the, what does the bill look like, or what would it look like, sort of an example of your average residential customer that uses 800 cubic feet per month of water and sewer with option 1 at the top, and stormwater. The next chart there is option 2. So option 1 gets you to that $100 a month total fee a little quicker than option 2 does, obviously, because of that 10% increase in 2015 and 2016. Pretty much plateaus after that, but that one would get the residents of Cannon Falls up to that level a little sooner than option 2 does. So it depends how fast you want to do that, what you think about that concept. The graphs in Exhibit A. The graphs in Exhibit A here are a pretty good illustration of again, the target versus cash balance. Like I talked about earlier, this is the water fund, the lavender, or not the lavender, the burgundy color is the target. Things get fuzzy after 2020, so even though our cash balance is over our targeted level after that, a lot of things can happen between now and then. And of course, we take a picture of this every year. So it's hard to predict out that far if we need that kind of cash balance, but we definitely are on target for 2020. And we're under that target in the water fund until then, just like the sewer fund would be with option 1. If you go back a few graphs, option 2 would just take those blue bars down here and would lower them a little bit all the way down. So, but at the end of the day in 2020, you'll be at the same spot. So again, the difference between option 1 and option 2 is how you would want to accelerate and get to that cash balance a little bit sooner rather than later. And then, of course, the storm sewer fund is sort of on its own here with not a whole lot of capital projects coming up. That one is just keeping up with inflation. You can see the blue bars are the cash balance and the burgundy is the targeted, so you're over the target. They're just ready for any project that comes along. It could be cash. You know, you could pay that with cash or some bond issue to kind of fit in there. So that's the summary of the report. We can go back a few more graphs and see how, it's this one right here, is really the top one there is a good one showing that top line on the sanitary fund. That's sort of what we're contemplating right here, either option 1 or option 2. And how, in the next 2 years, you'll get up to a point where you can kind of pull that back just to keep up with inflation instead of 5%. Every year you can go 2 10%ers, then you've got that compounding concept, and then you're keeping up with inflation like the stormwater fund and almost like the water, but we're kind of keeping that up to that 5% level on that one. So, anybody have any questions?
Yeah, so in 2022, then, is that when the sewer plant will be paid off? Or the bonds for that, the debt on that? Is that what we were saying there? Okay. So basically, the increases are so that we have to maintain those debt fund, or the amount to pay the debt every year due to inflation and all of that stuff, correct? Right. And the good thing is we've got a sewer plant. We don't have to build a new one, like a lot of people are going to have to do in the future.
Now, you were saying basically how many houses a year? 3 after the first year, 5 in the first year, and 3 after?
Yeah, we're assuming 5 in 2015 in there, this year and beyond, and 3 commercial this year and beyond. We want to be real conservative with that estimate because in the past, some folks weren't, and in other communities, and they assumed a lot of those developer payments and extra whack and sack charges and all that really didn't come. So, but
Now, the SAC and WAC now, did you take into account what we're actually charging on that?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we dropped that so much.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's the reason for the extra 1% on the water fund, to kind of make up for that decrease. Yep, good question.
Anybody else got any questions?
Yes, I was just wondering on the water rates proposed, I was just wondering why we can't scale back the capital projects so that because the people right now in Cannon Falls, I mean, I've been hearing so much about the high rates of our water and our sewer. In fact, they say they're higher than even their electrical and gas bill. And so I'm just wondering, well, what can we do to reduce the budget to relieve the people of these bills? I mean, you're talking about projections and you're talking about inflation. Well, a lot of people in Cannon Falls are hurting, and we have a lot of retiree people here as well. They're on a fixed income. And so I'm very concerned about this, and a lot of people are. Their rates are so high right now, and now you're doing a projection of saying, well, there's inflation and this and that. Well, what can we do to reduce it, the budget, and not hurt the people so much? I don't know, I'm new, so,
Well, I believe that we saw something a few months back with numbers for a geographical area around us and our water and sewer rates. Our water rates were actually slightly below average and our sewer rates were slightly above average. So I think we're in the ballpark as far as the general towns around us in a certain amount of, range.
well, somebody told me their bill was $300. I mean, holy mackerel. I mean, sorry, guys.
Yeah, I mean, when it starts getting that high, I mean, if you're using a lot of water, you might have leaks, you may have toilets that are running, or using a large abundance of water compared to others. I mean, it's hard to say, when there's reached $300, what's causing it? I mean, and if it gets to that point, I mean, they need to get hold of Public Works to,
Yeah, it's trying to get to that point. Somebody needs to be calling us and ask,
No, there were, they did have everything checked out fine. So that's what I'm concerned about is, I'm concerned for the people in Cannon Falls of these rates. And I don't know, I'd like to learn more.
Now, the other towns are gonna have to update their treatment, and that, we've already done that.
Yeah, we're all
So
good. Yeah.
their rates are gonna go through the roof. So we are, right now, yes, we might be a little bit, but in the future, we're gonna be the low people.
Yeah, are we thinking that the money that we're putting into the bucket, I read through this whole thing, is that the money that we're putting sort of in reserve so that we can take care of bills down the road? Is that what is going on?
yep, that's part of it. The other part of it is having enough money to pay our debts on the sewer plant. That has to get paid. That was bonds that were taken out years ago before we all got on the council to build it. So that's got to be paid off. Like I said, 2022 is when that debt service will be taken care of. There'll be improvements there. The water fund, sewer water fund, when we have projects, if there's extra capital there, then we can use that to put toward the different street projects as we move forward to try to keep the costs down for those projects.
So
And the cost of this, a lot of times, when you see other cities, in larger cities, there's more people paying into that piece of the pie, and that lowers it also. That's why he says, more housing, more commercial building, the more it's spread out. And right now, that's kind of the reason that we have the issues that we have right now.
Yeah, and with our poor business peoples, of course, we talked about this the last meeting, of, their income's gone down so far with their businesses, and so, like, if they have more put on them, would we lose them? I mean, it's hard to keep them almost right now, I don't know. That's something maybe we can talk about later, I'm not sure.
Now, the idea, of course, behind the cash reserves is always optimally to have 6 months of operating expenses on hand and
1
was it
year.
1 year for
Debt
the, for debt service.
Payment of bonds, yep. It's typically, it goes into your policy, that's what rating agencies like to see too. We can't forget that they like to see some cash that makes sense, now more than ever, of course, in the general fund as well, but they do look at the utility funds just to make sure that you're covered there too. We've also tried to smooth this out, not everything's being paid by cash, on the wish list, so to speak. Any large expenditure, would warrant a look at a bond issue, to spread, then it's a reason for the issue of bond. It's not that, we can't afford something and we maybe do a smaller project. It's to actually smooth out those peaks, to kind of keep things as level as possible. Otherwise, these rates would be jumping all over the map, so we do a little bit of cash and then we make up for that with a proposed bond issue or something over a certain amount of years.
But Kathy, you make a good point. I know for those on fixed incomes, it's very difficult, and I know this evening they'd like us to vote on this. I would be inclined to go with option 2 as far as the sewer funds, to make it at least a little less onerous for the people. Because we'll end up at the same goal, it's just gonna take us a little longer.
Yeah, because of the times.
Right.
I mean,
Because of the times right now for our town.
yeah, by 2021 and to 22, I mean, we'll be right there where we need to be if we go this route.
Right.
I mean, we wish we could, if we had a lot of booming business, our building and things of that nature, I mean, and we hadn't built a sewer plant years ago, I mean, the rates would still be low, and when they did build it, they didn't raise the rates, so now we're having to play catch-up.
Robbie, I've got one point too, as far as, Councilmember Gallup's specific question was capital projects, and if you look at Exhibit C, in 2016 and 17 each for the chart, or not the chart, but the spreadsheets, there are major capital improvements pictured for 16 and 17 for both water and sewer, for sanitary, and that is because of the proposed major reconstruction street project, which will include water and sanitary sewer. So that's why a lot of that gets hit in 2016 and 17, and we need funding. Typically in a situation like that, we don't use cash, but we do, as Todd said, we borrow, but of course you gotta pay that back. So we account for those major capital projects that way.
Thank you, Ron.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, with that, do we need to make a motion to approve those tonight? So, Bill, did you have a motion?
Yeah, I will make a motion that we approve the 5% water and option 2, which is a 5% sewer and 2% stormwater.
I'll second.
Have a motion by Bill, a second by Merle, to approve the 5% water increase, option 2 sewer, which is 5% across the board, and 2% water for the, is that correct?
Storm sewer.
For the storm sewer, yeah.
Mayor?
Any further discussion?
Yep. There's no way we could do like a 2% or something for this year, or,
Not, and maintain the projects that we need to
Oh.
accomplish.
And this vote is just only for a 1-year period.
Yeah.
Next year at this time, we'll be doing it again, and we'll re-examine our options at that point too.
Any further discussion? Not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Todd, for all your work.
Mayor, on the next item, if, I had told Ms. Felton she wants to speak on the zip rail, she's got another couple meetings to go to, if
Okay,
you'd be so inclined to let her speak
Yep, we will.
relatively early. Thank you.
Bring it up first, and then we will go from there. Next item is item 9B, which is the adopt a resolution in opposition of the zip rail. As many people know, there's a proposal to bring the zip rail and down through, from the cities, through Dakota County, all the way through Olmsted County, or through Goodhue County, and then into Olmsted County there in Rochester. And one of the proposed routes brings it right through Cannon Falls and basically splits the city in half. We've got enough places that are on a peninsula right now, we don't need any more. So at this time, if you want to come up, Nora, and speak, we can go from there.
Okay, I want to thank you guys for having me here on such short notice. Sorry about having to come right away, but the problem is that they just recently decided to allow having a community action Committee, and so those applications for that are going to be due February 27th. So in order to get that information out to you, I want to make sure I appeared now. I've given those to Ron Johnson so that now looking to get somebody on the Technical Advisory Committee from our city, but also with the Citizens Advisory Committee as well. And then along with that, I have set out it's on the pink sheet, Stopping Zip Rail. The reason why I'm here tonight is the scoping document came out January 20th, and so you will need to respond to the Tier 1 EIS part of that scoping document, and I suggest that you use the words "no build." And as you go through that, I've even cited the pages. I've cited it's called a final scoping decision document, and Mr. Johnson has how to get that online, so you get your own copies. And on pages 6 through 8, it'll talk about the purpose and needs statement. I suggest that you go ahead and explain to them why they have not indeed proven the need. And then your community will need to also respond to the impacts, which is on pages 18 through 25. And there's about 23 of those. I went over those with Kathy the other day just to kind of, so that you can give measurable and specific impacts to your community. What will it cost you? How is it going to change your comprehensive plans? I believe most of the communities are updating those plans now, but you know, you've had comprehensive plans on file for several years, and because you'd had no knowledge of this, this will substantially change those. And then those documents need to be sent in to Minnesota DOT Passenger Rail Office. But I was also suggesting that you send those to your state representatives, and especially Representative Tim Kelly, who's not only your representative, but also he is the head of the Transportation Committee. Keep one on file in your own office, and if you would be so kind as to also send one to our group, which is Citizens Concerned About Rail Line, because we're trying to compile all of the facts so that we can come together with the different shareholders, if you were, on this, and be able to present a total package when they decide to finish up this Tier 1 scoping document, which is supposed to be the end of July, first part of August. That we need to have no build in those words to be the outcome of that Tier 1 study. If indeed they decide to go with the build, and then FRA, which is the Federal Rail Authority, decides that it is a promising project, there will be funding come from the FRA, and then it's almost impossible to stop this project. So that's very important. The last thing I would say is if you had the extra time and people that could do it, I gave to Mr. Johnson also the state rail plan. And because Zip Rail is addressed in that state rail plan, if you could give some comments to that during its 30-day comment period, which ends March 10th, that would also be very helpful. There's a lot of inconsistencies as I look through this state rail plan, which also just came out right after the scoping document. There's inconsistencies between the state rail plan and what's in the scoping document. You need to point those out, and then if you give those kind of comments back again to your state passenger rail office and on the form that I gave Mr. Johnson, that will help build your case when you start responding to the Tier 1. So if there's any other questions, Kathy got the real lowdown the other day, and otherwise you can just call me. Thank you.
Thanks, Norm. Moving forward with this, the background on this is, you know, as she says, the Zip Rail has been proposed. There are a couple routes there you can see on the map down here, that one of the routes goes right down 52 and comes right through the western side of Highway 52 here in Cannon Falls, and they've even talked about taking it right down the center of 52, right on the median there. And you know, I think we should oppose this now to prevent any future consideration of bringing any rail into any new rail into through Cannon Falls. I don't think it'll be a good project for for the city. I think it'll divide the county. You know, when you've got to put cement walls up to keep the animals out and protect people from trying to cross it, you know, having to drive out of your way to even cross the highway or cross the railroad tracks is a complete inconvenience. It's going to split. You know, businesses will be taken over, whatever they want to do when they start coming through. So I think we need to get someone on the TAC. I think Ron and I had talked, and Ron had volunteered to do that. And one of the reasons for that is to have somebody to help us push for that no build. I mean, if we sit back and just do a resolution, sit back and do nothing, then we're not gonna have a say in anything. And, you know, if they get the right people on there, they can say build, build, build. But if we've got enough people saying no build, we can have a pushback. So that's the reason for the resolution this evening. Is there any further discussion?
Has an elevated train system been proposed?
I don't think an elevated has been proposed. I think they've taught it at certain parts, but not the complete.
Because that would make a lot more sense than this zip rail. And if we're gonna have to get a railroad through, that would be my
Yeah.
preferred plan.
Yeah, but anything we do that says that, we mention railroad coming through is almost like, if we don't oppose it, is almost like saying a yes. They'll count that as a yes vote, you know, and,
Yeah.
and,
Well, I agree, we should oppose this.
right.
But I'm just saying that if it's gonna go through, I'd rather see an elevated.
Yep, and that's why, you know, we need somebody on these committees to kind of help, if it does go that route.
Well, we gotta oppose it. I mean, it's bad enough that, CapEx decided to come right down 52, and we're gonna have those huge power towers all along 52. You know, this rail does not benefit any of the small towns between Rochester and the Twin Cities. There's no benefit whatsoever.
Yep.
All it does is hurt us in any way, shape, or form that you have it. I just can't see anything good coming out of this.
You know, the money that's gonna be put in this, I mean, even if it's private money, you know, put into our transportation system as far as our roads and bridges could pay for our, I mean, they wouldn't have a problem up in St. Paul approving the billions of dollars that they're wanting to put into, to build this thing. And even if it is private money, once this thing fails, it's gonna come back on the taxpayers to operate it. And we don't need that type of burden on the taxpayers to help pay for this, the operation of a rail line that's not even gonna benefit us.
They always say that if they have private money or whatever, the only thing is, as long as they have money. And so they'll say, well, we'll pay it until we don't run out of funds, and of course, that could be fast. And then we're responsible for the rest of the bill.
Well, I mean, Pine Island heard the same thing when they built the bridge to nowhere down at Pine Island. They were gonna have the biomedical facilities down there. There's still nothing down there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, and then when they talk about the population, if you look at the demography of the United States, the population is declining. I mean, the baby boomers have retired, the baby boom is over with, there's less people to work. I mean, where are they gonna get these people? I mean, that they're talking about going to Rochester every day. You know, where are they gonna get the patients? I mean, these sheiks and stuff that fly in, they got enough money, they can fly right into Rochester. They don't have to fly into Minneapolis and take a train,
Yeah.
you know?
I heard that also, my son lives in Big Lake, and I heard that the zip rail or the rail there is really, it's in the minuses, so there's a big problem there.
I mean, they're almost giving away rides,
Yeah,
you know, on that. So, I mean,
so,
I think we're going in the right direction. I think we need to work on opposing the zip rail in any way, shape, or form as it pertains to coming through Cannon Falls.
yeah, I do too,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Is there any further discussion on this evening? If not, the chair will take a motion approving the resolution, which is Resolution 2120, opposing the zip rail through Cannon Falls.
So moved.
I'll second.
A motion by Merle, a second by Bill. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. That moves us on to item 9C, which is the interchange information. I think everybody got a copy of the preliminary information that the Highway 56 access study discussion. We're just going to do a little talking tonight. I know we're going to have a another meeting on this just for the Highway 52 discussion. And what we did is we asked Greg Anderson at SEH just to kind of throw some numbers out there, just to give us a starting point of what it might come to if we even considered this. So there's some numbers there. We received those late this afternoon, so that's why we'll have to have another discussion on this. I haven't had a chance to look at it, but you know, just the basics on the construction of full right-in, right-outs. We're looking at a cost of $2,850,000 to the city. If we just did right-outs off of 52, we're looking at basically $1.75 million. But that doesn't throw in the extra cost of buying right-of-way, the cost of lighting, the cost of the EA, or any of the other construction costs. I mean, we're talking another 10 to 20% on top of that for just the right-in, right-outs. And the other piece of information we received this afternoon was brought up would be crashes per year. As you remember, last week when we presented the safety study, you know, without the right-in, right-outs, they were looking at 4.09 crashes. With the right-in, right-outs, it increased to a 25% increase of 5.12. And then with the right-ins only, they would project an increase up to 5.03, or a 23% increase in crashes at a right-in only. So those are the numbers that we have at this time. We are going to be discussing this further. We just got this information today. I've been talking with state officials and the county engineer and others on this, and there's going to be a lot of talk and stuff going forward to see what we can do on the situation. Does anybody else have anything to add on this tonight, discussion-wise? I mean, we're not, like I told everybody last week, we're not going to let this die. We're going to keep moving forward with it. We're going to do what we can to get the best project done for the city and at the best cost.
Ron, do we need to set maybe a special work session to discuss this so we can have the public hear what?
Well, I talked to the mayor shortly before the meeting today, and we discussed the possibility of having just a separate meeting where that is the only topic of discussion, so it doesn't get, you know, mixed in with anything else. And, it would be, of course, the mayor can call that special meeting, but we'd want to make sure that if we want certain representatives there, such as MnDOT, SEH, et cetera, that if you want that we have the ability and the timing works out for them to be here.
I think we look at it maybe in March, maybe after the first meeting in March sometime, when people are around. Let's look at some dates, Ron, and run them by everybody to make sure that we can come up with it, and then that way we can talk to the key players to make sure we've got people here so that we can come up with some answers. Anything else? Okay, if not, we'll move on to reports. Tom?
I have nothing.
Dave?
One thing I will say related to the safety study is I'm continuing to meet with MinDOT on the signage, the additional signage question that we've been considering here for the South 52 corridor, downtown area and going north. And after a follow-up meeting today with staff in District 6 in Rochester, I feel we're making good progress moving forward. I clearly see cooperation from MinDOT. I think there's a better understanding from their staff about the challenges that we have here with signage beyond that which has already been provided. So we'll keep moving forward, but they shared some good ideas today, and I think we're both kind of on the same path here, trying to work together to find a solution that can be compatible with their multitude of regulations and something that I think we could consider is reasonable for us too. So we'll keep after that, but making good progress.
Thanks, Dave. Right. Thanks for staying on top of that. Chief?
As it relates to 52, council is aware that unfortunately there was a fatality of a pedestrian out there. While that is not our investigation, certainly we have an interest in, learning more as that unfolds and work with our partners in the State Patrol on that. The biggest concern after the victim and the drivers, of course, was the emergency response personnel, officers, fire, and EMS that responded. And we did hold a critical incident debriefing, which is something that we do for our responders in these types of situations and other. And it really helps provide them the opportunity to kind of decompress. I can't think of any other way to say it other than these are very messy events. For first responders, they have to see the entire scene where, the other people that maybe saw parts of it. And that's not pretty. For our staff, they all seem to be doing well. I'm, of course, touching base with my officer. I know Tim is with his personnel, and I'm sure Todd is with his. But the overall mental well-being of the staff is critical for all the department heads in these situations. So we are looking at that as well. The other thing is just to remind people with these up and down temperatures, we're seeing melting and then freezing. So Public Works is doing a great job of keeping the intersections well maintained, but especially early in the morning, be aware that some of those may be slippery, and we hate to see accidents occur as a result. That's all I have.
I have a question. What was the response time and complications in getting to the scene of this accident?
I don't have the numbers. I can check from our dispatch component. I know talking with the Officer Edwinson, who was the first one on scene, he responded from the roundabouts going north because the initial call put the accident in the northbound lanes. What he discovered was it was actually in the southbound lanes. So he parked on the northbound side and responded through the ditch to deal with it. The arriving vehicles after that then were coming in from Highway 19, which is where they set up the detour, because Highway 52 southbound was closed for some time while it was reconstructed. So they then shut off all the traffic shortly thereafter at Highway 19, southbound traffic, and diverted it around, I'm assuming using the roundabouts as the way back on. But I certainly can give council that information.
I just wondered what the handicaps were with the roundabout and having to go 6 miles out of your way to get to cross the street.
For us, when this information comes out, we don't have the ease of access of 24 anymore, but we usually know where it's supposed to be occurring. It's just how accurate that information is. So in this case, they put it in the wrong lane, but given where Jake was, he determined that was the best way to respond. I'm going to have to guess his response was probably within 2 to 3 minutes of his dispatch to it. I'd have to look to see what sort of time delays there was for time of call and that type of stuff. I can look at the broader picture. not just the police departments, but I can look at EMS and fire response times and get that information to Ron, and he
Yeah.
can disseminate it to council. Or we can create a packet for, a memo or something for the next meeting, whichever council would prefer.
I think that would be useful information for us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just a couple of updates. The IUOE, or the 49ers labor agreement, I think will probably be coming back to you next meeting, hopefully. We had one issue to iron out yet, and I think we've resolved that, and I think, so we should be able to come back to you next meeting. They're still working on a state retirement system that really doesn't have specific things to do with the agreement itself, but it's a separate agreement in itself that has to be in either an addendum or within the contract. But I think we should be able to get that wrapped up. Tim Melchow, director, he's been really good to work with. I was hoping, he did have training tonight. I was hoping he'd be here for the rest of the meeting, but a couple of things related to discussions we've had. I know Tim and Linnell were able to sit down Friday and talk about some ambulance-related issues, which one was on the agenda tonight, and I appreciate that. And you recall, perhaps in principle, last year, council did approve the purchase of a third ambulance for us. Our third one really needs to go. It needs to be replaced. So he's working. Brenda first started working on it. Tim is finishing up the work now, and we should have something to you, hopefully the next meeting, for consideration for purchase of an ambulance, and Linnell and I will look at funding and so forth for that. And also with the, we're learning that I'm learning that the technology between here and the public safety building is in need of definite upgrade. There's computer equipment that's over 7 years old, and Mike and Tim are looking at the most economical and efficient ways to update services and so forth, and perhaps by using our servers rather than them buying more new equipment. And they've also had Todd Anderson, our new fire chief, in on that discussion. So things are working out pretty well, and Mike has been really helpful with Tim, but at least we'll be seeing some upgrades there for technology too, that we might be coming to you with suggestions or requests. That's all I have.
Your hand out?
Linnell?
Nothing, thank you.
Merle?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Bill?
Well, I would just like to say congratulations to Ron.
Yeah.
For everybody that doesn't know, Ron got married over the past weekend. So congratulations, and good you solved your ring problem.
Kathy?
No, I don't have anything more.
Jay? I don't have anything else this evening. Everybody stay warm over the next few days, and they say by the 28th it might hit 40. We're getting there. This time, take a motion to adjourn.
Almost.
Second.